Hey, what's up guys? Joe Davis here from Right Way. Thanks for joining us today. If you're joining our team, we're really excited to have you. If you're here to do the course, likewise, we hope you get a lot of information, a lot of content from this. So today really what we're going to focus on is just the basics of wholesaling. So what is wholesaling? Wholesaling essentially is we are the middleman, right? So we are trying to get a property to who? To the investor. And we come in right in the middle. So our job as a wholesaler is twofold. First, we are finding the property. And what else are we doing? We are finding the investor. We are conveying the property to the investor for a fee. So in basic terms, if we find the property, we contract it with the seller for $50,000. We would turn around and we would sell it to the investor for, let's say, $62,000. And what would our fee be? Our fee would be $12,000. And in very basic terms, that is what wholesale is. So we are looking for distressed properties, and we are looking for investors to buy the distressed properties. So in our market, we're in Houston, so we have different types of properties that we're selling. We're selling flip properties, right? And we're selling rental properties. So flip properties are ones that you are going to buy, you're going to repair them, and then you're going to list them on the open market, which is the MLS. Okay? For a rental property, you're buying it, you're repairing it, you're renting it, and then you're refinancing that same property out. So in this, I'm calling it a buy and hold for the rental, and then on the flip, I'm calling it just a buy and flip. So just as you hear those terms as we go through our course, you'll be a little bit more familiar with it. So here at Right Way, our primary product that we are selling is a rental property, right? We believe in the power of generational wealth. We believe in creating your cash flow long term, that you're not losing your cash flow as soon as you sell it, right? And you're not losing the equity when you sell it on a flip. So this is primarily what we have, but obviously everything has other advantages, and it depends what market you're in. Houston is a market that's very diverse. We have a lot of industry. We have the more affordable housing, which makes for good rentals, and we also have the higher end properties, which would make for good flips. But we'll touch more based on that at a later point. So that is what wholesaling is, right? Essentially, we are the wholesaler. We are sourcing the property to sell it to the investor for a fee. We're going to mark it up, and we're going to sell it for more than we contracted the property. Okay. So here's a term that I'm sure you've heard on your research on wholesale. ARV. I am not a huge fan of this terminology because the V actually stands for value. So it's after repair value. And this is pretty industry wide. You're gonna hear this in pretty much every market. I believe it should be called after repair opinion, because it's really an opinion of what the value of the property is once it's been fixed up, right? So that same house that we were selling for $60,000 in the previous scenario, right? We are estimating that whatever repair you put into it, let's say you put in a $30,000 repair, that's going to give you an ARV of, let's say, $140,000, right? So as a wholesaler, there's the two most important numbers that you can provide to your investor. That, in all honesty, most wholesalers get it wrong, which is the ARV and the repair. So these two numbers are how you're going to build your credibility. You're going to build your credibility by providing accurate ARVs, right? If you go to an investor and you tell them, Mr. Investor, I believe this house is worth $160,000, right? But in all reality, it's only worth $140,000. Well, he's going to struggle to sell it for 160, and he's going to lose a lot of money when he can't sell it when he lists it for 160, right? The second one is the repair. So if the real repair cost for repair is 30,000, but you go in and you tell the investor that the repair is only 10,000, right? What's going to happen? He's going to spend his $10,000 and he's going to realize, well, actually, the repair was a lot more expensive. Okay. So real estate is pretty forgiving, but if you are messing up on your value and you're messing up on your repair, there's a lot of potential for it to go wrong. So as a wholesaler, you really want to build your credibility. You really want people to trust your numbers, right? That's the most important thing in this industry. It's a very relationship-based industry, and if you get a bad name for yourself, a lot of times it's very hard to recover that. So before you go out there and start contracting properties, learn those two elements, ARV and your repair. We're going to spend a lot of time on this course on how you do an accurate value and a lot of time on how you do an accurate repair. As mentioned, today is just the basics. We're just covering some of the terminology regarding that, okay? So in your ARV, how are you finding the value, right? There's a lot of different softwares out there that'll churn it out and tell you, hey, this is the value, 140. But what you really want to do is you want to find the true comparables to that house, right? So if your subject property is a 3-2 in Baytown, which is 1,400 square feet, right? It's brick, doesn't have a pool or anything. You are trying to find your comparables, your comps, with the same types of houses as your subject property. Now you're looking for what is the amount that they're selling for when they're fully repaired, right? So once these houses are nice and beautiful, what are they selling? And let's say you found 140,000. Now what I want to do is I want to figure out, by using an accurate repair estimate, how much money is it going to take to put into that property to get to the after repair value, right? So there's a lot of factors in that you're going to have to consider. So at the end of it, you're selling the property to the investor, you're giving them the accurate value, and you're giving them the active repair, right? And again, real estate is all the numbers game. We have a lot of buyers out there who trust our numbers, they trust our value, they trust our repair. A lot of times they don't even need to see the property. They believe us when we tell them, hey, Mr. Investor, the house is worth 140, here's our comparables, and the house needs $30,000, here's our repair bid. It gives an itemized of everything. It's a very numbers-based business. It's very factual. There's not a lot of estimating what it could be cost or being hypothetical. Okay. So now we've got the property sold. Okay. We've found the house. We found the buyer. We've contracted it for $50,000. We sold it for $60,000. We know that we're going to make a $10,000 fee. There's different types of ways that we're going to transfer the property or the contract over to the investor. Okay. So we have something that most people are out there teaching, you'll hear it a lot, is called an assignment of contract. Okay? Now there's a lot of positive and negatives to every type of closing that you can do. So we're going to cover those pretty briefly. An assignment of contract is basically what it's saying, right? You're assigning your interest for that contract to the investor. So what that means is that it's still one closing. So here's the seller contract, right? And here's the investor. I'm essentially just changing the name on that contract to, Tom's Home Buyers. Okay? And to assign my interest into that property, I'm going to have something called an assignment fee. Right? So it can be anywhere from $5,000 to, it's just unlimited, depending on how much you contracted with that seller. Right? So this is probably the easiest way to get the property sold, but we will come across that it does have a number of negatives to it. So Mr. Tom's Home Buyer, I contracted this for, $50,000 home buyer. For $5,000, let's say $10,000, I'm going to assign you my equitable interest in this property. So your purchase price is $60,000. $50,000 is going to the seller at closing. 10,000 is going to me as an assignment of contract, right? So I'm walking away at closing with $10,000 flat. There's no other closings. It's one closing. That's the most important thing to remember. But the second type of closing is a double closing. Okay? A double close. So a double close is actually two transactions. In the assignment of contract, it's one singular transaction. In a double close, it's two. Okay? So generally you are closing with the same title company. Now your investor is sending in his $60,000, and then you are closing on the $50,000. Okay? So in the morning, you wire in your $50,000, you own the property, and then the same day you are selling it to the investor for him to own. And you are making your $10,000. Right? So this is two closings, so you're going to have some cost involved in this. Right? We'll cover that more in a second. The last type of closing it's still almost essentially a double close. But what we do is we call it a pass-through. So pass-through is very similar. He's sending in his $60,000 to the title company, right? And the title company, your escrow officer, is taking his $60,000 and he or she is passing over this money to cover this $50,000 on your front side purchase, and then you're left with, when this funds, $10,000. Right. So essentially what it means is instead of you having to wire in the $50,000 on the front side, the escrow officer is using his $60,000 to fund this transaction. Right. So it might sound to you that an assignment of contract is the most advantageous or the easiest and the cleanest. In some ways it is the cleanest, but what are the negative sides of an assignment contract? So the most negative is everybody sees the fees. Okay? Everybody sees the fees. That means because it's a one transaction happening, the seller, who you might have promised that you were the investor and you were closing on it, sees that you're making $10,000. Okay? Who else sees that you're making $10,000? Your investor. Right? What else? Your name is now no longer the purchaser. It's now Tom's Home Buyers. But when you contracted with the seller, you told them it was Dave's Home Buyers. So now there is some confusion. And I have seen on numerous occasions the seller gets to the closing table and they said, "Hey Dave, you're buying my house for $50,000. Why does it say $60,000? And why are you getting $10,000 on the closing statement? And why is Tom's buying it for $60,000?" Right? And just human nature, sometimes it can blow up. And they might get frustrated and say, "I've owned this house for 40 years. I'm only making $50,000. You're not making $10,000. I don't care. Sue me. I'm leaving. I'm walking away from the deal." Okay? The investor too can say, "Hey, I tried to get money off. You wouldn't give me $1,000 off, but you're making $10,000. You know, I'm just going to move on to the next deal. This deal is too expensive for me." Okay? So that's a big risk for an assignment contract. Another big risk is the bureaucracy side of things. We've already seen a number of states move towards requiring a license for this. So Illinois, Oklahoma, they're coming down pretty hard on wholesalers who are doing an assignment, right? So bureaucracy, everybody sees the fees, or legislation. You know, over time, I'm predicting that it's going to get more and more restrictive on wholesalers. So what is a way to circumvent that is if you're double closing it, you are actually owning the property. So it's very difficult for them to tell you you can't do something if you actually physically own the property. So that is a benefit of a double close over an assignment, right? So those are your main problems with an assignment. The benefits of them are more money, right? You're going to get a flat $10,000 fee. You're doing one closing. You don't need funds to fund a front side transaction. Right? So in a double closing, what are the positives? Well, when you are talking to the seller for the $50,000, that's all they're going to see. They're only going to see, your side of the transaction, that you're the buyer. They don't know that there's another transaction going on behind the scenes. Same as an investor. You are selling them the property. They don't know what you contracted it for. All they know is the numbers that you provided them on the sale. So that is a big benefit. And the negative is that you have to cover an additional set of closing costs. So you're going to have to cover the fees that we'll go over later down the line in another section of the course. But you're going to have to cover your escrow fees, your title policy. So it becomes more expensive. So all of a sudden that $10,000 assignment fee starts looking closer to, $7,500 or $8,000 net fee, because you have to pick up your front side closing costs. Right. So basically, you're paying to have the to be anonymous to your homeowner and to your investor. That's the cost that you're going to pay, and also to have a long-term sustainable business where you are not going to be subject to the legislation that we're seeing in some of these states. So the double close is very good. It's what we do here at Right Way. Occasionally, if we need to assign it, we will assign it. It really just depends on the deal. We work out the ins and outs of the deal and what's going to work best for that, right? If you have a very small fee where you're only making $2,000 or $3,000, it's not going to really be financially possible to double close on it, because it's going to absorb all your fee, right? So in that case, be transparent with the seller, be transparent with your buyer, and say, hey guys, I need to assign this contract. Another negative that I forgot on the assignments is according to legislation now, you have to disclose everything to your seller. So here at Right Way, we use a TREC contract, which is what all realtors and if you're buying or selling a home, you'll use. It's a contract promulgated by the state. So we work with a lot of realtors. We send them offers on their client's distressed home. But if it's just Dave's Home Buyers LLC on your offer, your contract offer, you're not being completely straightforward, right? So when it comes to closing, this would actually not get it done, because you need to have permission to assign the contract. So if you have an intention of assigning the contract, you need to let them know, and the way that you let them know is through the verbiage. So you would have Dave's Home Buyers and or assigns, right? So what are the problems with that? When you send it to a realtor, they might see straight away that you are a wholesaler, right? And maybe they don't like that. Maybe they've been burned by a wholesaler. There's a lot of bad wholesalers out there. So they're going to see that, and they're going to kick it back. They're going to say, oh, so you're not the end buyer. Well, we don't want to do business with you, right? But if you're double closing, you're only putting on Dave's Home Buyers. You don't need and or signs, because you are actually the buyer and you are reselling it. So the third type of closing, pass-through closing, we won't spend too much time on this. You might come across it occasionally. In most markets, it is frowned upon now or flat out illegal. Here in Texas, it's a bit of a gray area. So we've covered basically the different types of closing, right? Assignment of contract, double close, and pass-through closing. Those are the ones you are going to see time and time again. And as mentioned here at Right Way, our favorite type of closing is a double closing, but we look at each situation individually, and we will assign it if we need to. So an investor price, occasionally you'll hear that called an MAO, right? That's your max offer. So the MAO is, we are calculating how much the investor will buy it for, right? So let's just give a quick example of your ARV. let's say it's 140,000, right? And your repair is 30,000. So we got our ARV by looking by our comps, and we've run a repair estimate on how much it's going to get to that ARV, right? So now we need to figure out how much is an investor willing to pay, and how do we formulate our offer according to what we can sell it for. So again, as I said, it's a numbers game. Real estate is cyclical; it always goes up and down. It's going to be dependent on your market. So what I'm using here is just what our market is currently seeing and what we know our buyers have appetite for. So in Houston right now, for a rental property, we are selling at 78%. Okay, it seems high, but it's definitely a seller's market right now. The inventory is very low. This will be subject to change. You'll get a feel for what your buyers are actually buying it at, right? So we are working out $140,000. This is your calculation. 140,000 times 78% minus your repair minus your fee, right? Your fee is how much money you want to make. So let's get our calculator out. In a real estate, you're going to be using your calculator every day, multiple times a day. It's a numbers game. So 140,000 times 0.78 is 109,000. Okay. So why do we offer the 78? Because we want equity. Nobody's going to do all this work for free and not make any money out of it. Then we are going to subtract our repair fee, so 30,000, right? And then let's say our fee is going to be 12,000. Gives us a little bit of negotiation room if the seller doesn't immediately agree with our offer and they counter our offer. Okay, so 109,000 minus 30,000 is going to give us our investor price. So we know, just according to the numbers, that a buyer would pay us roughly $79,200. So what do we need to offer the seller? We need to offer them less than what we're selling it for. So we are now going to subtract our fee of 12,000, meaning our offer price is 67,200. So let's rerun that again, just to double check. 140,000 times 0.78 minus 30,000. All right, minus 12,000. And that gets us to where we want to be. So that is just a general overview of how we are calculating our investor price and what our offer price is going to be. Obviously, as we get a little bit more into the course, you're going to see that there's a whole bunch of numbers that you really want to play with to formulate better offers. This is just kind of a general rule of thumb. Okay. So just a little bit of extra terminology. We have what we are wholesaling, SFR. Okay, this is single family residential. Right. Then we have MFR or MFU. Right. This is multifamily residential. And then we have lots, obviously vacant lots. Right. In other markets too, you might come across a lot of manufactured homes. It's another thing that we do wholesale here, but this is our core focus at Rightway, and really what we're teaching here at this course is single family and multifamily. You know, most of the properties we do are your single family, cookie cutter houses, 3-2 brick house. Single family means it's going to fit one family. Multifamily are your buildings that fit multiple occupants. So anywhere from a duplex, triplex, quadplex, up to Grant Cardone, 400 units, right? That's multifamily. And if you can, guys, keep watching this video back over, write these down. You want to learn all the terms in real estate. It's very important because when you're dealing with realtors, you're dealing with investors, they're going to float these terms out really quickly, and you're going to want to know exactly what they're talking about, okay? So MLS is the multiple listing service. This is where we get our comps. You know, I am a realtor, but you do not need to be a realtor to get access if you can get access from another realtor, right? You have to be a realtor to get access to the MLS. So the best thing is to if you're not here working here Right Way, then you have somebody in your network, in your group, that can give you access to the MLS. It's the number one place that you're going to find comps. Okay, you can get these softwares as we mentioned before, but they're really not going to dive deep into the to the market, to the true data that you're trying to find the most accurate comps to. Right? Most of them pull the comps from the MLS regardless. Right? So another term you're going to hear a lot, and we're going to spend a lot of time on this, is hard money, or HML, and that is a hard money loan, right? It's a hard money loan. So a hard money loan is basically a bridge loan that investors will use to get them to the point of reselling the property on a buy and flip, or to hold the property on a buy and hold. Right? Those are the two types of product that we're really selling. So the investor is borrowing this money to basically get to the point where they can resell it, or they can refinance it on a long-term loan. And why would they not go straight into a long-term loan? Is because a bank is going to come in and they're going to see that $60,000 house. They're going to see that the roof is falling in, the foundation's bad, there's mold, a ton of issues. HVAC is gone. So they're going to come in and say, well, hey, this property is too distressed. I don't want to lend on it. We don't want to take that risk. So there's lenders out there and private individuals who will do asset-based lending against that property for a short-term period to get it where you can fix the house up enough that you can flip it and you can put it on the MLS, or that you can now go to the bank and say, hey, I need to refinance myself out of this property. I've got this beautiful, beautiful property. It's all been fixed up, right? So hard money loan is very important to to what we do here in the investment side of things, and we're going to spend a lot of time on going over hard money loans. So today, really, we're just covering some of the basics of wholesaling. So what have we learned today? We've learned that a wholesaler is the quintessential middleman from finding the distressed property, the distressed asset, and pairing it with a buyer, an investor, right? So we really look forward to having you here at Right Way. If you're full-time, joining us as the acquisition team, or if you're here doing the course. So we look forward and see you at the next course.